Hi, my name is Tiga, and you're listening to Last Party on Earth. Over the next hour, I'll be asking the ultimate DJ question. It's your last set ever. What do you play? This week, I'm joined by my good friend Kolsch. And if you're unfamiliar, he's a critically acclaimed DJ and producer from Denmark. He and I recently collaborated on a few tracks, which creates the kind of easy back and forth that podcast heaven was built on.
Last party on Earth.
I met my friend Rune, professionally known as Kolsch, backstage years ago at a Sensations White party in Copenhagen. It's one of those parties where everybody wears white. I, of course, refused to wear white. And Rune walked in wearing a very special watch, and those two talking points were enough to get us started. Years later, he still inspires me with his passion, his great vibes, his clear thinking, and his intelligence. In many ways, we're complete opposites. The tension somehow works magic, not only with our actual friendship, but also our musical collaborations like Hal. I loved our conversation, and I hope you enjoy it too. This is Last Party on Earth. I am here in Ibiza with my friend and fellow DJ and producer Kolsch, and we are here today to talk about your dream party, which through a cruel twist of fate also is going to be your last party ever.
What a premise, huh?
That is the premise. There's a sting in the tail. So I want to talk a little, we're going to get into a little bit what the party would be like, obviously the music you would listen to and some of the feelings that would be involved. And hopefully in the whole process, I like to try to get a little bit at the hidden, deeper psychology of DJing. To begin with, I wanted to ask you about a party, the earliest maybe, or just a party that you remember that really either changed your life or just a party that made you aware of just how good a party could be.
I'm going to have to divide that into two parties, actually. The first one was, I guess, mid-'80s, where I went with my parents to a New Year's Eve party in London. Some fairly well-off people were having a great party, and I came over there, and they had this amazing sound system. And they were playing all kinds of salsa and all kinds of stuff. And it just, the first time I ever realized that I could dance, and I wanted to dance.
How old were you?
I was maybe 6 years old or something. And I just realized, wow, this music just goes straight to my bones, and my feet started moving. And I danced for 6-7 hours straight with all the adults. Like, kind of silly, but it's like one of those things that I always remember because it was
sounds like a fantastic party.
It was an amazing party. It was a really good party. And all the kids were upstairs playing, and it was just around the area where Star Wars had come out, and the kid from the party had everything Star Wars. So I should have actually been up there, but I was down there with that amazing sound system, just dancing away. And that was the first time I realized that dancing was important to me. Moving, there's this extreme connection, emotional connection between moving to music, which I'd never felt before. So that was probably the first impression of what a party could be like was for me. The second experience I want to talk about was probably the first time I played at a really good rave, which was in '93 in Copenhagen in this old squatter house called the Youth House, which was full of punkers, and every scum of the earth would come in there, and there was no rules about anything, holes in the floor. We used to there used to be quite a few techno parties, and I'd called up the promoter called Zepp, very cool dude, and said, "Look, if you set up some gear, I'll come down and play." There was actually a party already organized, but there was a second room called the Egg, where it fit like, I don't know, 100 people or something, and they hadn't planned anything that night. So I just called them up. But Fresh said, "Look, if you set up some turntables, I'll come down and play all night for free," and he did, and it was magical. I mean, this was like the early days of techno and house music, for me at least.
How long had you already been DJing?
I hadn't really been DJing.
Was this the first show?
This was the first public show. Well, I was playing in the youth club where I was playing Technotronic and Lambada and all kinds of stuff when I was like 11 years old. But I think this was the first sort of...
So your first real show is also the show you choose to...
Yeah.
So that's a good start.
It was quite incredible. I mean, it was a very, very sort of adventurous time in Copenhagen. And you really had to fight for the right of music. It was prime days of rock music. It was prime days of Nirvana. It was like everybody was totally into that sort of stuff. So techno music was completely ignored. Nobody liked it. Nobody wanted it. So it was really, you really had to fight for your right to play that music.
I remember that feeling, the us against them feeling, which I don't know if it's, I mean, it doesn't seem to still be around, but maybe it is. But it definitely was a big, it fueled the fire for a long time, like, especially when you're young.
Absolutely. You get that sort of weird, I mean, I felt at the time, and this might sound completely ridiculous, but I felt I was some kind of savior of music.
No, it's not. I was like a preacher.
Yeah, me too.
An evangelist. I was a nightmare. I think I was truly a nightmare.
We must have been really terrible. And I was at school all the time with these techno records, and people were like, no, we don't like this. Like, you have to listen to it. And
no, I was intolerable. I'm sure you were too.
Oh, absolutely. So those, I guess, were the two parties that I'd mentioned.
So you started DJing then in 93?
That was I started DJing with electronic music in 93. Yeah. Before that, I was kind of it was more of a hobby. I happened to be in a youth club where they had turntables and a little disco, and used to go down there every afternoon and play around with the equipment. And
okay, still, it's 25 years.
It is 25 years this year, actually.
How many parties do you play a year around now?
Now?
Yeah.
I just checked, and it's been roughly the last 3-4 years around 140, 150 a year. Yeah,
that's a lot. So you've played thousands by now?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. What percent? This I like to ask you. I mean, what percentage of the shows now, when you're back at the hotel after that you loved?
It's
like loved, you know, like where you really like, where you have no questions, just answers. You know, you're like, yes.
It's a sliding scale, that, because there are different levels of love, as always, which is the politically correct answer. But I will say,
no, but you know what I mean.
I know
though,
what
like
you mean.
Where you're, you know, it doesn't mean the other ones are bad.
No.
It's just those ones where it's like you're you've got ideas. You know,
you
you're
come
just
back
like
with more energy than
exactly.
you left with. Okay,
exactly.
Let's say maybe 10% at the most.
Okay.
Yeah, really, which is pretty good, I guess. So what happened is
I'm just happy you didn't say like 70, because I would have jumped out the window.
No, I think as an artist also, you get better at saying no to the wrong bookings over the years. So the percentage of parties get better with experience, in the sense that you know where you fit, you know where the crowds work for you, you know what people you will be able to connect with when you perform, which is always a very, very difficult piece of a puzzle to get right.
Yes. So let's have your first record. This is your dream party. It's the last set you're ever going to play. What is your opening record?
My opening record is M83, My Tears Are Becoming a Sea. It's pretty short. It's like 2.5 minutes long, but I just wanted to... First of all, it's an absolutely beautiful piece of music. I think everybody's a fan of M83. I don't know anybody who isn't, really. But I think this sums it up so well, in the sense that it's a serious occasion, but it's also something very beautiful.
When I hear that track, I think of a few things. First of all, as a DJ, your decision to start with a clean break, with a statement, an emotional statement. As opposed, I mean, it's not mixing in. No. It's not just beats. It's definitely, and that very much reminds what I think of you. I think of someone who, there's the emotional component and there's like the beauty component, and it's obviously important, you know, to set that stage.
I think it's extremely important. The DJs that I look up to all have a very, very particular sound and are very proud of what they do, and I think a DJ should be. I mean, our biggest mission is to tell a story in some way. It could be pretty much any story you want, and I think the most depressing these days is these middle of the road DJ sets that don't really go anywhere. I'd rather go and listen to a DJ that I think is totally terrible, but I still respect the person for playing what they like, than just some middle of the road tech house stuff.
Yes, I'm with you on that. I also thought too, when the M83 track is beautiful, and I was thinking, as a producer, maybe I'm going to reveal more about myself than I intended to on this one. No, but when I've always, as a producer, I've always kind of struggled with this division between, I guess the easy way to put it is secretly wanting to be a songwriter.
Yeah.
You know, that thing of where you hear these beautiful records and then in your own productions, you know, kind of, when I heard the M83, that's the first thing I thought of is like, are you a, I don't want to say closet songwriter because you write songs, but do you know what I mean? Do you aspire to a little bit more of that traditional rock, pop idea about songwriting?
I think all techno producers do. We have
secretly, some people hide it.
We have that wish of wanting to be able to create something so beautiful. I mean, when I listen to Bon Iver or M83 or pretty much anything that has that sort of alternative folkish vibe to it, I'm so struck with inspiration, and I'm in awe of how did they do that? How do they write these songs that touch something so deeply in me? And I wish I had that talent, but I just don't think I do. Honestly, I mean, I've come to learn that there are boundaries to my talent, and I know exactly where they are, and they stop with songwriting.
I consider my greatest talent simply that I realized the limits of my talent.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think that's actually what I'm good at.
That's one of the things you have to learn in life. Absolutely, I agree.
Do you have a pre-show ritual? Is there anything particular you do? Do you get to shows early? Do you show up last minute? Do you like to hear the guy before you?
Actually, I would love to hear the guy before me, but I rarely do, which is super depressing because of the tight schedules and flights, and a lot of times there are multiple shows in one day. I always end up coming in last minute, maybe hearing the last 20 minutes of the guy before me. And honestly, this is one of the biggest issues that I have with what I do, is that I wish I had more time to go and hear other DJs play. And that's probably one of the reasons why I really like doing back-to-back with a certain...
You're forced to listen.
Yes. Like when we're playing back-to-back, I'm always super inspired by the records you play. Obviously, we're very diverse in our taste, which is also really refreshing for me. But I just enjoy also seeing the reactions to records that you have been playing for a while that you think work with the crowd. Because a lot of times I get stuck in these weird ideas in my head of what shouldn't and shouldn't work, and it's sometimes very limiting. I need to sort of really bash my head against the wall and go, "Look, dude, play something different. Just challenge yourself a little bit more," because I'm super worried that it won't be as a successful experience for the kids.
Yeah, I like back to back also because I think everyone, you can't help it. You try to stay open minded, but you end up thinking in terms of genres a little and then what's nice is when you have a friend or someone doing back to back with that you trust, you're just hearing their favorite records basically. And some of those favorite records obviously are things you wouldn't touch normally or you wouldn't be exposed to, and you're kind of forced to.
Which reminds me, when we played back to back at the Off Sauna party where you played that track, the Boys Noise track.
Oh yeah,
that I completely lost my mind over, and I really wanted, which then he didn't send me, the bastard. But then it came out 2 weeks ago, and I've been hammering it ever since.
It's a big one.
It's such a good record, but it's like one of those things that I got from you.
Yeah, and
it's probably not something I'd usually play, but that record just struck a tone with me, and I'm really happy that it did.
Yeah, well, here that's something too. I think there's something. DJ is definitely, you have to have the capacity to. It's imagining a song live too, and that's why it's nice to hear it live when someone else plays. It's not the same as hearing it on your laptop
it's a whole sonic experience. Yeah, completely.
What, choosing a track of your own, if you were forced to, I know, forced to choose one of your own productions, which one would you pick?
So I was actually going to say Goodbye, which is a record of my last album, because it was such a fitting title for the occasion in the sense that it would be the last DJ set that I played. But I ended up going with All That Matters that I did a couple of years back with a guy called Troels Abrahamsen of a very famous Danish band called Vito. And the reason why, which ties very much into what we just spoke about, is that it's probably, for me, the best piece of music that I've ever been part of making. I mean, his vocals are just so absolutely beautiful, and the song in itself is just we really struck something that I think is amazing there. And it's from 2011, I think. I'm not completely sure, and it's stood the test of time. When I listen to it now, it didn't even seem like it's something I made, because it's still for me.
That's mission accomplished.
It is, and I feel it's that good. I mean, I remember when we made it. It's an 11-minute long version. And they came from Spotify and from radio stations and wanted edits, and I refused to do the edits because I just figured this is so good, it just needs to be what it is. I'm tired of all that radio edit stuff. So that's what it is, 11 minutes.
You mentioned it, you say, you didn't even feel like you made it or whatever, and I know that feeling. Yeah, it's an amazing feeling when it really does feel like it just... I don't know what it is. It's a trick of memory. It's like you don't remember it all happening.
Yeah.
And it seems kind of impossibly perfect. I mean, it's very rare that you have that feeling, but it's really nice.
It's a super fortunate feeling to be able to have about something you made.
Yeah. And also like, so I sometimes, there's only a few tracks like that where I'm so like happy it's done, if that makes any sense. It's like, I can't believe all the little things that had to go right, and it's done, set, complete, forever.
I think there's also something about the process of making a record, because I mean, when you make the record, you go thoroughly tired of it, and I think for the first 6 months after I've released the record, I'm so damn tired of that particular tune. And so it kind of grows back, and then start playing it again, and then I get really tired of it again. But after a couple of years and you listen back, you also have... Time has done a very good job for you, because you always have a clarity of vision, as you're not as involved in it as you were when you made it. So you can judge the quality better, I guess.
What's your overall feeling on playing your own records?
I don't mind. I feel great about it. Now, I mean, I know it's part of the show. It's kind of what I have to do. I mean, I'm primarily known as a producer, so not playing my own records, people get really angry. I'd get hate mail for that.
But I envy you, because it seems, but again, this maybe is just like grass is greener, maybe it always seems like other people have an easier, but I see how you seem to be a DJ producer that found a very good zone in terms of being able to present the records they produce as a DJ, and I don't know, it seems to fit well together, I'm
glad, because I'm always really worried about that, because I mean, obviously I've got a few big records that I still like to play, and some of them I kind of feel that I have to play, because I know that, I mean, other than the kids with the cell phones begging for me to play records, which is a luxury, like people that come to hear you play certain records is an absolute incredible experience, but at the same time it's a bit challenging, because maybe that's not what you really had in mind.
I'll be honest, I mean, it's not about me tonight, but I've had a tough time with it over the years,
isn't it weird?
I've had a super hard time with it. I don't feel that I ever, especially like festivals and stuff, I honestly don't feel like I ever really solved the puzzle. Maybe I didn't work hard enough, but anyway, move on. But when I hear your set, so I feel like, okay, it makes sense. The music he's made, and even the ones that are a bit older still fit in a little bit. I'm
trying. I mean, but I try. I work on it every week to figure it out.
Well, I think that's the difference.
Maybe that is it.
So what is Peak Time record? Now, Peak Time, first time your Peak Time record, and then I want to understand a little bit your views on what really is the ideal peak energy wise, but that's a separate thing. So what is your Peak Time record? I mean, this is a big moment.
Yeah. So from a purely egoistical standpoint, I'd have to say Photon Inc. What is House Music, which is an old DJ Pierre record from about 92, I think, which was the first record that got me into house music, really. Like,
so this is a bit of a tribute.
It is a tribute, and it was the first time I realized that less is more when it comes to house music. It's super repetitive. It goes on for about 9 minutes, and there's pretty much nothing in it.
Sounds perfect.
But it is a really, really good record, and I still play it to this day, and it's one of my favorite records ever made. But I mean, it's not a Peak Time record per se, but it is for me.
DJs, we all talk about energy a lot. I mean, it seems to come up a lot. What was the energy like? What was the crowd like? It's something. It's a measurement in a way. And also, there's so many. I mean, just different scenes and different genres and different styles have completely different expectations of what is good energy. I mean, so for you, at your ideal party, I mean, if you could track that energy curve through the night, what does it look like a little bit? Is it a frenzy where people are, going crazy for a prolonged period? Is there a long build of tension with, a key release point? I'm putting you kind of on the spot here, but because I think it's interesting because I guess really it's a question of restraint. That's what comes in. Is some people are really about that long build, and others it's just like from the get-go wanting.
I'm a builder for sure. I like spending. I mean, presuming it's a long set. I like playing really long sets. I like playing a lot with dynamics, especially for the first couple of hours. Playing slow tempos, and also playing records that have a more open sound. Because the more compressed the record is in the mastering or in the production, the more energetic it will feel on the club and on the floor, depending on the system, of course. But I really like to play more open sounding records. And I actually really enjoy when people have sort of their own thing going on when I play at parties, when it's not always all about me. I love when crowds are involved and there are crazy characters and people they have room to dance and move, where it's not everybody face the DJ and everybody hands in the air and jumping up and down. I like that feeling, that free-spirited feeling of just being able to move around and just enjoying yourself, having a good time with your friends, guys and girls, just dancing. I like that vibe where it's
also just leaving a bit more room.
Yeah, I like
for
that.
them.
Yes, let them do their thing. Like let them create their own party. Because I mean, there's not going to be any party without the crowd interacting and having a good time. And that's a thing that I miss a lot of festivals, and I miss a lot of really big club shows that I do play 80% of the time. I miss that kind of vibe, that free-spirited vibe where people are just sort of dancing around and having a good time.
But also as a DJ, I think, to leave that space for people to do their own thing takes a lot of patience and takes a lot of confidence. And I think what's something I struggle with, I think a lot of people do, there's this irony that the bigger you get as a DJ, so you're playing bigger and bigger stages, people are trusting you more and more, but also they're kind of expecting more and more. So kind of what happens is that at the same moment that you should be getting more and more confident in your ability to do whatever, in a way you also feel more and more of this external expectation.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a little bit,
For sure.
it's a bit of a balancing act.
I agree completely. That's one of the reasons why I always make sure to schedule a couple of dates during the year in really small clubs that I just like playing. It's kind of a reset button. I play this Gewölbe, you've played there already in Cologne, and it's my favorite place to go and play, and I end up playing 8-9 hours. It's just super small, and there's room for errors, room for experimentation, there's room for just being yourself. Because I feel the pressure, like if you're on a huge stage and you've got a bunch of people in front of you, and also it varies from country to country what works and what doesn't. So it's a big puzzle to find that sort of midway between what is your style, but also what works for that particular crowd. Like for instance, it's a bland example, but it's not a good idea to play songs in English in Italy, for instance, because not very many Italians speak English, so they can't relate to what's being said. Obvious thing.
I never thought about that.
And all these things that I always have in the back of my mind going is like, where would you drop this? Like in Spain, they like more loopy stuff. They're not totally convinced by this melodic stuff that I play, so I have to cater to that a little bit. But it's all these things you got to think. You can't just go up there and just play whatever. That's the challenge of being a DJ, and it's also a growing challenge of being a bigger DJ that's entrusted with a bigger stage. Because either way you look at it, if you fail, you cost them a lot of money. You cost the promoters a lot of money. It's kind of like having a Formula One team and putting an amateur in the seat. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. You need to be really aware of all the variables of it. And I think also, talking about something a little bit different, I think also that's one of the reasons why a lot of DJs lately are going more and more sober, because you can't just go up there and be completely wasted and pull it off anymore.
No. Well, I never could completely understand how they did that.
No, I was always impressed.
I was always impressed. I'm still impressed. What is a secret record that you've been saving for years? And I'm very, very interested in both the idea of withholding, like this idea, because I think especially it's a generational thing. The old generation of DJs, keeping things secret was very important.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Forever,
it was,
yeah.
and it was, that culture I think has changed quite a lot. So
I still believe in it.
yeah, I still do too, but it seems like, anyway, there's definitely a divide now between the I guess the generous and the sharing, whatever, and the hoarding. But what's a top secret record for you, or something that you've just never felt able to play?
Well, I mean, top secret records. I'll say, talking generally, pretty much my sets these days are maybe 70-80% my own productions that I just haven't released because I feel it's extremely important to be able to deliver something that nobody else can deliver. That's like the general consensus. In this case, since it's my last show, and I wanted to showcase everything that means something to me, I'd say I would play a track that I've always loved very, very much. It's called The Caves of Altimara by Steely Dan.
So this track, I mean, I didn't really phrase the question perfectly. It's really about, it's about those ones that you've never felt able to play, you know, and then because we all have them, you know. I mean, I have records that they've been on the cusp of being played for like 7,000 parties. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's a joke how it's never gotten played. You know, I don't know what I'm waiting for till I'm 100 or something. Okay, but this particular one you chose, I mean, you're going to have to explain to me a little bit why you love Steely Dan. And you're not the first person I've had this argument with. I can't find a single thing I like about it.
Okay, so the reason why I love Steely Dan, obviously there's a connection to my dad who used to love Steely Dan. But I'll explain exactly to you why Steely Dan
I want to understand. I don't want to be an asshole.
Steely Dan was the Daft Punk of the 70s and 80s. You know, they were the first to... realistically, they're really good musicians, but they couldn't play all the parts, so they would enlist different musicians to do different things. For instance, on some records, they have had drummers come in playing the snares and the hi-hat and only the cymbals, or they had different singers coming in doing the choir section because they weren't too happy with what came out, and they've been super anal about it. They were the first ones, in my opinion, to sample, but with studio musicians. They would have people come in and play their vision. And I just love the idea of that. The fact that you would go in, not being able to do it as good as someone, get someone to do it for you, pay the fee of whatever it cost at the time, and still keep all the credit, which I think was absolutely beautiful. But the reason why I love Steely Dan so much is that basically Donald Fagen is not a very good singer, but all the lyrics are so cleverly written. I mean, I love the irony and everything. So they moved from the East Coast, from New York. They're both, well, Walter passed away, but they moved from the East Coast to the West Coast to make these records because that's where everything happened. So they have that East Coast irony, that mentality, but with the West Coast sound of the 80s. Everything sounded absolutely beautiful and amazing, but all the lyrics have that sort of deeply, deeply arrogant irony to it. And it just touches me. I love it.
Do you think you will ever actually play it at a party?
I've played several.
It's a tough one.
I've played several Steely Dan records at parties.
Okay.
And none of them have ever worked.
No, I was going to say it is a genuinely tough sell.
It is genuinely something I'd only do for myself. Please let me know
when you play it.
But this particular record, the reason why I love this so much is that it's one of the only lyrics that really relates to how I felt as a child. This sort of lonely upbringing, this scavenging around and trying to find your place in the world. So that's why I really like this particular track.
I have to say, I'm doing this series with a lot of different DJs, and I really like, selfishly, I'm doing it to understand a little bit better what my compatriots go through, some of the insecurities, some of the positives, some of the ambitions. And also, too, what I'm starting to see is there's threads that run through everything different people do. There's some people that I'm not going to name names, some people it's really about excitement and fun and escape. Some people it's really about moody, kind of a darkness. Some people it's about showing off. But with you, I see there's a definite emotional component, you know, as it relates to your own life, to your past, to experiences, and I actually think it's a big reason for your success. I think it's a big reason of what people really are connecting to, that there's this like, I don't know, it's not about not being afraid to do it, but you're putting out everyone says they tell a story. I mean, that's like the biggest cliche in the world. That we know. But actually, and in your selections is consistently just an emotional component. And I think it's good, because I say it because we've talked about this. I've had trouble with that. You know, like with getting, you know, sometimes things are clever or sometimes things are cool or sometimes, but that underlying, because that's really what people want at the end, you know, I think we all have our burdens to bear, and I think the different way to handle it. And music for me was always a very therapeutical thing. Even going to raves back in the days was all about just getting out of the house, just getting out of my own brain, you know, just escaping yourself for a little bit, and not having to think so much for a while. That seems to have chased me into my career now, which is kind of depressing, really, when I think about it. Now I'm thinking all the time. It's as good a reason as any. I think that's why everyone ends up in a career.
No, it's. I'm glad you noticed. That's what it is. It has to be, for me, a very, very primal and very honest thing. Music is supposed to come from that point. It's not supposed to be clever, and it's not supposed to be intellectual. I don't.
No, I agree. I think anyway. I think it's clear. Even the people that are trying to be clever, the real successes. I've seen it in my own in anybody's catalog. The things that leave the good zone into great are the things that have an honesty to it.
Yeah,
it's always the same.
I think you're right.
So let's talk about the actual party.
Yeah.
Your dream party. I mean, where is it? Like a abandoned warehouse, tropical island?
No, I'm kind of split in between two, because I have this big love for mountains. I love the Alps. I'm crazy about them. I'd love to have this party on the Alps.
Do it.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool? Mountain party. But at the same time, as we're now sitting in Ibiza, and how much this island has meant to me, there's one spot in Calaconte, which is probably the most beautiful and magic place I've seen in my life, especially during the full moon. And having a party, the last party in the world there, would be absolutely amazing.
Okay. I'll give you a visa.
Thank you.
But I do have a soft spot for mountains as well. Who would open up for you? You have an opening DJ, someone, you know, who are you going to trust with this momentous honor of warming up for you?
Yeah, that's a difficult one.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I was thinking a lot about who my early idols were, and I think the one that would sort of, other than close friends that I know that would do the job brilliantly, the one other DJ that I could think of was probably be Francois Kevorkian, who would be the one to play an eclectic set enough, but also play music that I could relate to in that way and do a good job. I think he's one of the unsung heroes, if you can say that, of our community, because he is still to this day an incredible DJ. And the older I get, the more I appreciate it. I mean, the first time I heard him, I was rather confused by all the eclectic selections, but with my years, I've just come to really enjoy it.
I've never heard him as a DJ. As a producer, it's funny, just a few weeks ago, actually in Copenhagen, I spent a few hours with Daniel Miller, and we just got deep into discussing Mute and Depeche Mode, and we got on the subject of Francois Kevorkian. And he said that as a producer, he said he had never worked with someone that was as intense, I mean, in a constructive way, and detail-oriented, and just obsessive about every single sound, every single element of the mix. He said they would go to clubs, they'd be up all night, then he would go right back into studio and re-listen to mixes. Wow. He said he was completely next level. I mean, he really made the point of, but anyway, you said it. He's underrated. He's amazing. Ideal set length?
As long as possible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm that kind of guy.
Especially because it's the last one.
As long as possible. I'm actually doing
What's the longest you've ever played?
I've done 9 hours. I think I'm going to do throwing a party in Antwerp in December, where I'm going to play 10 hours, which is also the 25th anniversary of my DJing. And it's going to be a pretty cool one. So that's going to be interesting. It's funny because I have this app on my phone which shows how much movement I've done. And I'm
how many kilometers?
Yeah, because I dance a lot.
You're going for a 200-kilometer show or something?
No, I'm kind of aiming for that marathon dance. Wouldn't it be cool to have danced 42.5 kilometers?
Yes.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, it's true. I noticed that too. I noticed you actually, I remember when I first noticed that on my phone, I was like, I was like, whoa, you really walk a lot in airports.
Yeah, you do.
I was like, wow, you really, I did
A lot,
10K in an airport.
That's how we keep slim.
Who's at the party? Like what's your, when you look out there, I mean, what's your ideal? Is it just, is it a certain, is it young people? Is it just mixed up? Is it a cool crowd?
No,
it's a strange question.
We need everybody there. We need all the freaks. We need all the transvestites. We need all the cool gay people I've met over my life. We need all the serious but fun lesbian girls I've met in my life. We need all the crazies, all my family, all my old friends, all my
family
colleagues.
At the show?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do you get nervous when you play for family? Have you played in front of your...
Yeah, they've heard me a few times. I love when they come out. Honestly, I had a show in Paris, and my stepmother and her aunts came out, and it was fantastic because it's a fairly young crowd. I mean, they were probably early 20s, all of them, and just next to the DJ booth there was this small VIP area where my auntie and my stepmother and a bunch of their friends, they were all pretty much 60-something-year-old women. They drank all my champagne. They went nuts for 6 hours. And I love that. I love that diversity. There should be room for everybody. The music doesn't have an age like that. And I think if it was my last party, I'd have everybody that ever was an influence in my life to come there. And also all the enemies I've made over the years. Like one last chance to...
Wow, this is like a real...
No, one last chance to just,
I like the idea.
meet
I like
them,
old
make,
enemies.
I don't have many enemies. Maybe 2.
But you want them there.
No, but just a good opportunity to maybe make up and let bygones be bygones in that sense.
My dream party, there's an age cutoff. I don't want anyone over the age of... I'm the only person allowed over 30.
That's boring. Come on.
I'm joking.
You're the only one who'll understand all the records you're playing.
I'm joking. Okay, as part of this setup, you were allowed a VIP guest. You're allowed a golden ticket, one person alive or dead that shows up.
Yeah. It would have to be my dad, 100%. So he passed away in 2003 of a brain tumor, and he never got to experience sort of the rise of what I did. He always thought that I was kind of going to be a loser kid because I didn't want to study. Well, he was a guitarist. He was a cool dude. But he never really, because of his own struggles with the music business, he didn't believe that it was an actually viable option to do.
It's not.
Well, it isn't really.
I mean,
we managed to wrangle our way through.
Well, it's a bit like sports, It is an exceedingly.
No, I would really just have loved to see him experience just a tiny portion of what I've achieved in life, and I'm not talking about record sales or awards or this nonsense or money for that sake. I'm talking about having been able to influence people and just maybe give a little bit of happiness back to a lot of people. I think that's the biggest reward we have is what we do. Like we're standing at a festival and you're seeing these kids and they're having the time of their life, smiles on their face and they're just going nuts, kissing each other.
That was while you were playing.
What? In general?
That you saw that.
No. Yeah, but when you watch into the crowd and you're seeing these moments and you can relate to these moments because you've had the same moments at festivals. And I've had the same moments to, let's say, Derek May or to Jeff Mills or to Kenichi or to whoever I was listening to back in the days. And I just know that feeling. I can see that feeling on their faces.
But is that actually something you still actively think about?
All the time.
See, I think... Again, maybe I'm selling myself short, but I think you'd be surprised. I don't know how many people are still thinking that. I mean, I think it's if you were actively thinking about that and aware of that while you're playing, I think that's a very good thing.
That's 80% of what I do when I play is looking at people, see what's going on. And my biggest ambition is to play their cell phones out of their hands back into their pockets. But
dream parties, no cell phones, by the way.
Oh, no way. No cell phones. But I mean, I believe these moments happen. I always watch the crowd and I always watch the action. I actually had a really shitty experience some time ago I'll tell you about. I was playing at an after party to a big festival and it was the last tune I was playing. And there was this really intoxicated girl in front of me, and she was dancing, having a good time, and her friends were there. And this dude comes up, this real, like, reverse cap kind of dude comes up, starts groping her, and she pushes him away. And he comes back and tries to put his hand up her skirt and touching her boobs and stuff. And I went down and said, "Stop being gropey. What the fuck is your problem?" You know, I got really, really mad. And I think it's our responsibility as grown adults, as DJs, but also as people, to stop shit like that going on. And you can only do that if you're looking. And I've had situations where I've been in festivals and there's been fights where I've alerted the security, or there's been situations where I felt, hey, she's not okay, or he's not okay, where I've had people go down. I think it's important to realize that we have a responsibility too. We're like the lifeguards of the festivals.
Yeah, I mean, like horrible breakdance circles.
Yeah, we got to stop that too.
Those need to be
glow
terminated.
Sticks.
So now we are into the aftermath. After it's all done.
Yeah.
First of all, are you an after party type?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm a big old barbecue with everybody there type. That's what I like.
Okay.
Big old barbecue, a couple of jazz records, and just hanging out, having a couple of beers. I love having that post-gig beer and just hanging out and catching up, talking nonsense.
I think sometimes I think my favorite part of everything is post-show, if it's a good show, is that whatever it is, that few hours, like the glow of kind of a justifiable pride, like a little bit of pride, like you've done it, you did it well, people are happy, everyone's good, and there's no travel you've got that little window, like there's nothing to think about, and it's a great feeling.
It is.
So let's say your after party, your dream after party is this giant barbecue with friends, amazing food, a few jazz records, but there is a DJ there. Who is it? Who's your after party DJ?
Who? I know exactly who it should be. John Satrincha.
Who?
John Satrincha. So John Satrincha is a legendary Ibiza DJ who played at the Satrincha. It's a little hut on the Salinas beach. And the first time I came to Ibiza in 99, we couldn't afford to go to the club, so we'd go down there every day and just hang around on the beach and listen to him play. And he'd get all the new records. He played for 7-8 hours every day. And what he did was so beautiful. He'd start off with playing chill out records. He'd go into more breakbeaty stuff. And then suddenly he'd start playing house records. And before you know it, around 6-7 o'clock in the afternoon, people would get up and start dancing on the beach and just having a good time. And he would definitely be my preferred after party DJ.
I had actually never heard of him.
He's amazing.
I could pretend I heard, but I'm super honest.
For me, he's legendary. He's one of the biggest inspirations, one of the most versatile DJs I've ever heard. And
when I tell you it's all over, like, you know, if I told just the idea, the concept of a final party, whatever, what's your first feeling? Is it like, oh God, no, I don't want this to end? You know, because everyone's, you know, there's such a spectrum of people I talk to, spectrum where they are in their life or in their career. A lot of, obviously, you know, older DJs start to think about what's out there. Younger guys don't even think about it. What goes through your mind when you contemplate the end, or the end of performing, at least?
Yeah, well, I think it would open up a lot of opportunities to explore other arts. You know, making music is something that's always going to be with me, of course, but I'd love to dabble into photography more if I had time for that. Maybe even take up painting or something like that. Well, just for myself. I have a very, very good career going. I'm not looking to expand that into anything else. I just for my own pleasure, I'd like to experiment more, cook more. I love cooking. And also just have more time to enjoy life, you know.
If it was, what do you think you would actually? What do you think you would do? Is there a second occupation, or like if there was no more music?
I think for the first year, I'd probably catch up on all the books I wanted to read. Go to the museum.
Catch up on sleep. Just sleep for a year.
That's for sure. Sleep is a thing that we're in dire need of in this industry. But just in general, just focus on things that I've been not taking part, seeing friends.
Yeah.
Which I don't do enough at all. Hanging out with family, you know, go for a long walk with my mom once a week. I'd love to do that. Just talk, you know. engage in good conversation like we're doing right now.
Yeah, I completely. I think, I mean, there's so many things that DJing's a strange thing because it is pretty much the best job in the world. I mean, the fact is like, and your license to complain is really you can't really, because it is really amazing. But just because it's amazing, there are certain things that people don't see that that you forgo or sacrifice, and obviously that feeling of never. For me, I have a joke with my manager where it's like the name of my autobiography would be like, I just need one more day.
Yeah.
Like it's always, there's this perpetual, I just need 2 more hours. If I just had one more day, like, cause you're always on the move.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you said it, but time is the only thing that we're going to run out of, really. I mean, that's the true one luxury that we have in our lives. So either way you look at it, the time you waste is not coming back. And, I mean, it doesn't have it doesn't matter how much money you get paid for it.
No.
I think it's extremely important to choose your battles. And I agree with you. I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way. Like the job I have now. I actually was thinking about just imagine being in a band, how much of a hassle that would have to be, carrying around instruments and having to perform every day. And if you're feeling hungover and you can't play your guitar very well, or you've got a throat infection, you can't sing, whatever, all these elements to it that can go wrong. Whereas we pretty much are liberated a little bit of that. Yeah,
but there is one big advantage to the band scenario. It's that conspiratorial gang thing, which is something that we, I think that's another thing about back to back. You're temporarily in a band, for a few hours, because I think the going at it solo. I've talked to lots of people and everyone knows it now, but like anxiety and there's a lot of things in the DJ world that's pretty acute. Because you're really quite isolated. I mean, you're alone a lot. Also, there's one thing that, if we're going to talk a little bit esoterically about it, the best thing about DJing, the best thing about electronic music from a commercial waypoint or from an audience waypoint is that it's a very, very sort of simplified, very, very strong emotional expression, in the sense that there's one person you're looking to. There's one particular sound. There's rarely vocals, and it's a very, very primal emotional experience for everybody who attends it. It's not 5 guys, a guitar solo, 2 bridges and a chorus, and this, that, and the other. It's kind of confusing when you think about it, and I think that's the best thing about it. But it also increases the pressure on the one person performing. If you're off, or you're having a shitty day, it's maybe more apparent than if you're in a group, if you're in a DJ, sort of in a band setup. Yeah. I oftentimes think it's one of those things that's really best not to think about.
Yeah.
Because it is. There's so many times you're playing for every once in a while, like I'm in front of like 20,000 people and a funny thought enters my head, which is just like, what if I just press stop? Yeah. I mean, in the old days, it was the thing about lifting the record up. Yeah. There was always that thing of like, what if you just lift the needle up by accident, or just that weird thing of, I don't want to call it power, but that imbalance that the tiniest thing you do gets amplified.
There is something to that, and I agree with you. It's a thing you have to force yourself not to think about, because it's just too much. Like 20,000 people. Like even we played in the weekend here together. We were playing at the same stage. There were so many people there. It was enormous, and it's mind-boggling to think about. It's not something you want to spend your time.
Now I'm just into some bonus questions. The thing about being in front of a lot of people like that by yourself, like, were you shy at the beginning? Were there things you had to do to kind of, I don't want to say develop a persona, but, to overcome that barrier of just being alone up there, because I see you dance a little, you put your hands, you're expressive, you're not hiding, you're not, was that something that came naturally? Was there a learning curve to it? Was it a conscious thing?
I mean, I was fortunate. I used to do a lot of theater and stuff when I was a kid. I was always pretty good being on stage.
Mime theater, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I was a mime.
You just dig deep into your mime training. Okay.
But no, basically, what's been happening is gradually the stages have grown bigger over the years, which has been both daunting and very satisfying from an egotistical standpoint, in the sense that the more people come, the better you're doing. But I will honestly admit I had a long period of time where I was drinking way too much.
Okay.
Yeah,
but that helped.
It helped. Yeah, it helped. It was in the early 2000s, and I was not going to say I was borderline alcoholic, but I kind of was. Looking back on it now, it wasn't a good time. And for a long time, up until maybe last year, I would kind of have to have like a glass or of wine or a beer or two before I go.
You're not the first person that's told me this.
No, but to cut off that sort of, the anxiety of being up there. But within the last year, I've kind of stopped doing that. Mostly, unless I feel like it and I want to, but mostly from the standpoint, it also makes it really exciting for me to get up there again somehow, because you get a little numb to the excitement at one point, especially when you're on your 5th show on a weekend or whatever. Yeah. But I find that it's interesting to challenge myself both musically, but also mentally. Where am I? What can I do to sort of force myself to wake up a little bit? As we also spoke about earlier in this interview, you got to find ways to keep yourself alive.
Interview where I was debating if I should finally just get heavy into drugs to give the crowd what they really want. I'm incredibly selfish. I've broken it down that my not taking drugs, my consistently non-drug, non-alcohol life is just selfish. It's just
it pretty much is.
It's just for myself.
Yeah, you're not suffering enough.
If I cared about the people enough,
if you were a true artist, you'd do it.
Of course. Of course.
No, I have this plan when I'm 80, 85, I'm going to move into a big house with all my 85-year-old friends, and we're going to take all the drugs that are there just to have good times and to figure out. I've never done drugs.
No.
I've never ever done drugs. I've smoked a spliff once, and pretty much the only thing I ended up with was that I wanted to eat pizzas, and I can do that without the spliff, so I figured that was a waste of time. But I've never actually done any, and the reason probably is because my dad used to work with junkies. He was in a rehab program where he would take them on a cold turkey tour. They'd take a bus, drive into the woods, stay there 2 weeks, and come back clean. That was sort of the thing, and he did that, and it was a tough on him, both emotionally, but also obviously tough on the junkies, I guess.
Yes.
But I just never really found the glamour in it.
No, that'll do it. Mm. Yeah. I think just last thing, I'm interested in something I ask a lot of people. I mean, how self-critical are you? Like, how much are you analyzing your sets after the fact? How much do you, like, are you hard on yourself? Would you consider yourself hard on yourself?
Yeah, completely.
Do you think there are people, do you think there are guys out there that just are not like that? Because it seems like, I would assume everyone's a bit like that, but I also have this crazy idea in my head that there are guys out there, or girls, like there are DJs out there that they just play their thing and that's it.
I don't think any successful DJ is hard on themselves.
They have to be, right?
Yeah, because if you're on that level and you have to perform on that level, you have to be criticizing yourself, and you have to have a good group of people around you to help you do that, help you evolve, help you move along. And it sounds so easy, right? You just go buy a bunch of records you like, you play them, and people are very happy. But that's just not how it works. Some records work and some records don't, and there's no immediate way of knowing unless you play them out. I mean, it's very, very simple. You can listen to a record thinking it would be a great thing to play out, and it probably is not. I mean, out of the, let's say I get 200 records a week, maybe 2 work.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. So you got to be super critique about that.
I think that's part of what this series and talking to people, it's the fact that DJing is on the surface so simple and yet not really easy. It's a weird mixture of, and it's also, I think it's something where it's quite easy to be good. Mm. It's quite easy to be decent, but it's quite difficult to be exceptional.
Yeah. So, yes.
Anyway, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure as usual. We didn't do much stuttering or no ums or ahs, and
we can add that.
I punch those in later, and I wish you all the best with all your projects.
You too, man.
For rights reasons, my legal team has told me that we can't include audio in the podcast, but you can find all the tracks that we talk about on our SoundCloud and Spotify pages. Also a note that some of these episodes were recorded in the summer of 2018, so don't freak out if the parties they're talking about have already happened, or if people have passed away, or if there's some other small inconsistencies. We will all just have to do our best to accept that. This has been Kolsch's Last Party on Earth, with me, your host, Tiga. You gotta know you're gonna want to join me the next time when I'll be joined by Gerd Jansen.
Last party.